This is the Marcia Week Show, and we're coming to you live from Barbados.
A pleasant good afternoon to you all. This is Marcia Weeks, and you are watching the Marcia Week Show, and we're coming to you live from Barbados, and it's a great day, a lovely day. And I know you see this handsome gentleman sitting right beside me here, and we're going to talk to him. You're going to know exactly who he is. Now, guys, what I want you to do is to share. This is a great information that's coming to you, about the Caribbean, and I think it's important. So we're gonna ask, some questions to Fred today, and who is born and bred right here in the Caribbean. And so I'm going to ask you to share. Those of you who are watching from Caribbean, hey, we are live. We are live. Call the neighbor and tell them to turn on the television, because we have some important questions to ask today. And those of you who are watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, get ready with your questions to Fred. If you have a question that you want to ask Fred, go ahead and ask it early, because guess what? We only have an hour. Well, that's what I'm saying. We only have one hour. We'll see where it goes. So I want to see those numbers going up, because you are sharing. All right. Don't be afraid to share. Don't let anybody try to tell you you can't share. All right. Share. Don't be selfish with this information. So today, guys, we are talking about this, what we're calling the COVID-19, this debt. What is it? Is it a crisis, or what is going on with this in Barbados? All right. So I just want to give you a little intro on why we are exploring this topic. Barbados, with a population of over 280,000 people, and they're approximately 1/13 size of its neighboring island, Jamaica, has one of the highest debt-to-GDP ratio in the world, and the highest in the entire Caribbean. This small country, Barbados, ranks at number 9 in the world with a staggering 141.88%. This rate is way above that of the USA and even China. To arrive at the debt to GDP ratio, one looks at the cumulative amount of a country's government debt and compare it with the total value of goods produced and services produced over a given year. A high debt to GDP ratio is undesirable for a country, as a higher ratio indicates a higher risk of default. In a study conducted by the World Bank, a ratio that exceeds 77% for an extended period of time may result in an adverse impact on economic growth. The question is, how did this very small island state outrank large countries in their borrowing rates, such as Canada, USA, China? Weak economic growth, a large public sector, and significant debt servicing costs are all said to be blamed for Barbados' 9th place rank in the world. Since 2018 to 2022, there has been a steady climb of the nation's debt, especially during the COVID-19 crisis, 2019 to 2023. The Prime Minister of Barbados, who also serves as the Minister of Finance, in a Barbados Today article, which was published July 22, said she was disappointed with those who were concerned and critical of the high rate of increase in Barbados's debt since 2018 when she took office. She said the interest rates were very low and that she did not see why anyone would be concerned that Barbados could not repay the loans. However, in April 2023, the Prime Minister herself is now saying she's very disappointed and concerned about the country's debt, especially the very high interest rates that have arisen up to 4 to 7%, with interest on debt risen to 449 million US dollars. Many of the PM's critics are baffled at her surprise, disappointment, and complaint of the high interest rates, since she is also the Minister of Finance and who served as one of the governors of the World Bank that issued some of the debt. She also served at the IMF during that time, and as Minister of Finance must have had knowledge of the variable interest rates that have now become a cause of grave concern for her. And these are some of the things that her critics are saying. Now we have some questions. The question is, was Barbados secured loans in some of her critics are alleging that the government of Barbados secured COVID-19 loans in 2018, an entire year before COVID-19 was announced. Could this be the case? Join me today as we speak to Mr. Fred Corbin on Barbados' debt trap and fact-check his allegations that the government borrowed money for COVID-19 relief before COVID-19 was introduced. Guys, this is a big conversation. So today we have with us Mr. Fred Corbin, as you could have seen him there earlier. Normally we are our show, we would send a link and you would be in a whole different location. But I think that it's quite appropriate that we are sitting here together today, because you wanted me to see documents. You wanted us to be in the same space so that we can connect with each other. But let me just say welcome, and it's good to have you here with me.
Well, thank you very much, Lady Marcia. It's much appreciated. I think that our listeners are owed the opportunity to find out for themselves, and the pointed questions that you will be asking, and the fact that we have the documentation to support what we are investigating, and the discussions that we're going to be launching into is for the knowledge of you, the listening public. And the most important thing that we wish all of you who are viewing this afternoon to understand is that we need to find the way forward. We need to find a progressive understanding for a competent financial future for the Caribbean region. And I'm not an economist, I'm not a financial person, but when it comes to the money that will ultimately be the responsibility of our future generations to be repaying, or will have a negative impact on our future generations, that causes me great concern. That causes you great concern. It causes all of our regional diasporas significant concern, given the fact that we are not united on a common financial platform. We are segregated. Some are tied to the US dollar, some are OECS, and the debt that is accrued by different countries is always being serviced in one denomination, and that is the US dollar denomination, which makes it far more difficult for someone with a devalued ratio or a high debt to GDP ratio, very difficult to repay. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very important that we understand why this is happening. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, well, you started off saying that you're not a finance person at all. Can you just tell us a little bit of your background? We are at home and we see these, anybody see the voice notes come out, man, and they're filled with all kinds of information in there. And you wonder, who is this man? And he's speaking to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, So tell us a little bit, who is Fred Corbin?
Well, Fred is an ordinary guy that just decided to find out a lot more about what was going on and has a passion with engineering and a passion to discover and create. And I would honestly say that I'm more of a creator of ideas and concepts and so on and so forth. And I would step back to 2005 when all of this began, when I won a scholarship to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And the reason I won that scholarship was because I'd taken part in a competition of aerospace design, where I designed an aircraft, an unmanned aerial vehicle. If you can pull that.
And that's what we're seeing on the screen?
That's the unmanned submarine. Mm-hmm. So let's go to the unmanned aerial vehicle.
Yes, so continue, yes.
And this particular aircraft was designed because we had a vision that was coming to fruition, or halfway through in 2005. We were halfway through the what is known as the Freewinds Caribbean Food Security and Regional Development Initiative. Mm-hmm. Freewinds Food Security and Regional Development Initiative was an idea that I started off discussing with several different people and so on, and eventually we were given limited funding to continue to do. And it began in the origins of it started in 1998, and then officially began research in 2000, all the way through to 2010 and a little bit beyond. Mm-hmm. One of the core factors of the Freewinds Food Security and Regional Development Initiative was being able to protect the region's maritime space, because the Caribbean region is a very long, fragmented geographical space, and we wanted to make sure that all of the development initiatives for infrastructure in tourism, industry, education, and logistics such as trade, seaports, airports, etc., was going to be in a protected environment where we had up-to-date information on exactly what was going on across the region. And the only way to do that was to be able to be in command of the airspace above our region. And I designed the Aerostar, which you see there on your screen. And this is the high altitude aircraft. It's all carbon fiber construction, very lightweight, but can fly at altitudes of 65,000 feet. Typical operating pattern will be at 25,000 feet, and it has alternate solar panels built into the upper surfaces of the wings for ancillary performance, but incorporates two very important systems. One is a maritime pulse Doppler radar, which can see 25 feet under the ocean surface, and the other is an aerospace sampling designator, which takes in atmospheric particles and so on, and you can identify environmental pathogens, chemtrails that we're currently being sprayed with. You can identify heavy metals such as titanium dioxide, aluminum dioxide, and also the CO2 content of anything that may be in the atmosphere from the passage of an aircraft. You can also identify what fuels are being burned, and a range of different systems. Technically speaking, this aircraft would be launched into a 36-hour mission where it would patrol the region in a racetrack pattern and stay aloft for 36 hours before returning to home base. And in concert, it would be talking directly to the submarine, which is also autonomous. And that little sub is operating down to like 250-foot depth underwater. And the information that the sub is gathering on ocean temperatures, ecosystem health, the ability of ocean currents and so on, speeds, temperatures, also looking at atmospheric conditions at the ocean surface, being able to monitor weather conditions, hurricanes, all that sort of stuff. And it would then relay information directly to the Aerostar, which is the airborne platform, and the two are combined into an educational program that we designed for what is known as the Western Technical Institute that was going to be built in St. Lucia. We had approached the government of St. Lucia at the time to build the Western Technical Institute. And Western, the word Western means Weather, Environment, and Sea Trend Observation Network.
So you are an engineer.
That's correct.
Because I think it's important, that people understand exactly who you are, because we're at home and we see these these voice notes, and we hear the voice notes coming at us, and we don't know who is behind that.
Yes.
And I mean, you came into and start coming into our WhatsApp messages during the COVID-19. And I want to know, what is it that caused you to start to send those voice notes? So we know your background, you're an engineer. Why would an engineer start to send those voice notes out to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean?
Well, thank you very much for that very important question. It's a very, very important question, and I need the public to understand, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I'm doing this is that in 2021, we all know that the beginning of the so-called COVID-19 vaccine rollout took place in January of 2021, after the whole of 2020 of listening to the daily or the almost 3 times weekly press conferences that told the public absolutely nothing. Was the greatest misinformation psychological operation ever conducted in the history of this country by a criminally fraudulent narrative that was set up offshore of Barbados. It was then translated across the region to all of the medical fraternity. The medical fraternity then took that and translated it into what they wanted the public to hear. And the public was misled. It was taken down a garden path that had absolutely no end in sight. The light at the end of the tunnel just kept getting fainter and fainter and fainter. And at the end of the day, when the vaccine rollout began in the United States of America in 2021, friends of mine and family, distant cousins and family members of mine began to take the COVID-19 vaccines because, as a socially conditioned population, accepted and trusted the medical fraternity, they took the COVID-19 vaccines. Within 6 weeks of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout happening in the United States of America.
So let me pause you there. We're going to now call them injections.
Injections.
Right? Because of where I can see where this is going, and I'm trying to keep my channel.
Yes.
So we're going to say injections.
The COVID-19 injections began in January of 2021, and I lost 16 close friends and family members in the first 6 weeks of January of 2021.
Okay. And they were all throughout the world, or were they all here?
There were 9 different countries.
Okay, I see.
Very close friends of mine that I had met in my travels and so on, and I had kept in contact with, and all of a sudden they were no longer there.
I see.
It just went from there. Now the number is up to number 37.
And so that propelled you.
That's correct.
into starting to send. And I want to say that you are one of the key persons that were just consistently sending out information. And even for some of us who you got information and you wonder, what is this now? What is Fred coming with? Anybody out there telling the truth? You say, what is this now? It at least forced you to go and do your own research, and to be able to determine if what he said was so. And some people, they made up their minds in different ways, which is what this program is about today. You're going to hear things on here, and that you would need to do your own research on, to know whether what is being said is what you believe. And it's just, it's a 1-hour program. So it's important to write things down and to go and do your research. All right. Now, let's bring it to the matter at hand, the COVID-19 debt scandal, right? That we call it that, based on your voice note that you sent out. So can you give us in a nutshell what you think is the status of Barbados' debt situation right now? Are we in a crisis?
We're not only in a crisis, but it's very, very important to understand that an even greater crisis is about to happen, and that is the total collapse of the Rothschild banking system.
So bring that to Barbados. I want you to bring it to Barbados.
We're bringing it to Barbados, and the facts of the matter is that the public of Barbados has been misled, and they do not understand that within a very short space of time, you will not be able to use cash, because the government is pushing for a central bank digital currency, which is just an algorithm that exists on a server somewhere, which is a value they can put in whatever they choose. And in hyperinflation is going to strike this country, where the average person across the Caribbean region and in Barbados would be paying up to between $30 and $40 for a tin of sardines.
But what about the person who says, but Fred, I mean, that with the way how we are operating now, where we're doing, transfers, bank transfers, and we're doing all these different things online, that would be the next step. And it's not, they say, well, why are you, blaming Barbados? It's happening all over the world. It's the next step.
Yes. It's, at the end of the day, we have to realize that there's an agenda. And the agenda is to get as many people on board with the central bank digital currency as possible. But the public must understand that a central bank digital currency is your ticket to complete and total slavery. And the reason I say that is this.
Right.
When you want to put a digital currency in place, and we have to remember that the Minister of Finance also said this from the very beginning when she became Prime Minister in 2018, that she was going to introduce digitization and AI, is that with a central bank digital currency, it depends on two things. Number one, everyone has to have a digital identification in order for a central bank digital currency to be viable. Number two, the person that has a digital ID has to surrender all of their personal data in order to get the digital ID so that the central bank digital currency can work. Now, what does a central bank digital currency benefit the public? The only thing a central bank digital currency does is make a transaction seamless from one person to another. And
people might say, but that's an advantage. I mean,
yes,
who wants to go and stand in the bank in lines and it's going to help the society.
That is correct. However, a central bank digital currency in the current environment climate, where it is linked to totalitarianism, where a central bank digital currency tracks your every move, and a digital identification is tracking your every position, knowing what you spend money on, how much you spend money on, and where you spend it, and then it is linked to a carbon credit taxation as well as a social credit score. What this does is that you are surrendering your entire personal sovereignty to the state, and you become a slave of the state. And this is what is known as surveillance capitalism. And when I say surveillance capitalism, it means that the upper level stakeholders of the larger industries are using you as a commodity, because they can now track you, trace you, and limit you, and shut you out of the system at any point in time. So the reason that this creates debt, is that what happens is that you're driving people into poverty in order to be able to control it. And that poverty can never be alleviated, because the person that is being controlled is always going to be just under the prosperity line. And that is the agenda.
You're saying that, initially we're talking about the national debt.
Yes, well, the national debt
will become, so how does that feed into, is it that you're saying that there are powers that be that's trying to make the nation poor, that we are then putting out our hands to them? Is that what you're saying?
That is precisely the point.
No, you said that you believe that the digital ID system is going to lead into totalitarianism. Is there an example of that, or is it something that of your figment of your imagination? Where did you get that from?
All the public have to do is just look at China and Australia.
Okay.
In China, you have a digital ID. If you cross the street without waiting for the traffic to stop, your digital ID is tracked. Your social credit score is reduced by 30%. You will not be able to buy a train ticket next morning to travel to another city.
But aren't there some countries in Europe that have the digital ID that the totalitarianism isn't happening there? Why?
Not yet. Simply because digital identification the people are awaking to the totalitarian regime of digital identification. And you would say, well, how does this have anything to do with the national debt of a country?
Right.
And the reason that this has to do with the national debt of a country is that if you have a national debt that is already very high, and you have interest rates that are continually rising, that is tied to a collapsing monetary system, the debt goes through the roof when the monetary system collapses. So if you have a digital ID, you can control your population.
Interesting, guys. Interesting, guys. Share the live. I know you're enjoying the conversation. I see the comments in this that's coming up here. But I want you to share the live. Please help us to get this out there. Important, so that you can do your own research. There's nothing on here that is gospel and that it's saying, but you share the live and do your own research. Very, very
I just want to make one point here as well. And I want to be very clear to the public this afternoon. I don't want disciples. I need you to do your research. Don't listen to me. I don't know everything. I'm an engineer. I've been trained how to do research. I've been trained how to use data. I've been trained how to use factual data and turn it into connecting the dots. Do your research.
Correct.
Become more intelligent. Become more awake. The more awake we are, the more sovereign we are. And then we cannot be taken advantage of. And that is why we are here.
Okay. Excellent suggestion there. And that's my belief on this whole thing. Is to research. Those of you who are watching on Caribbean, listen, research. Now, I mean, we are hearing that, our debt to GDP ratio is, it actually doubles, what is required. The required rate or what is suggested is 77%. And we are at 141 point something percent, right? So my question is, do in your voice note, you implied that the Minister of Finance of this country, Barbados, was very aware of the high interest rate, because it's a variable interest rate, and so. Your belief is that the Minister of Finance is very much aware of that. That's what you're alleging, and everything on here is an allegation, right? So you are alleging that they were aware of that. Why are you saying that?
Well, thank you very much for that very pointed question, because the reason that I'm saying that is this. If you are not aware of the variable interest rates of the money that you are borrowing from the organization that you are a board member of, then why are you a board member?
So you're saying that the Minister of Finance of Barbados, who also is the Prime Minister of Barbados, you are saying that she was a member, right, of the governing body.
That's correct.
Okay, I want to be able to show that to you, but continue talking, because I want to. You sent those documents to me.
That's correct.
And because I was curious and I wanted to see for myself, right? So just let me be able to find that. I'm starting to have a little technical thing here, which I wasn't doubting, but you go right ahead. You continue. You can show the people the document here while I bring it up on the screen. So you are saying that this Minister of Finance is also was a board member, and therefore you are inferring, because we can't say for sure, right? He's alleging and inferring that it is possible. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Yeah. So continue.
So one of the most important things here, just bear with us for a second, and I quote, and this is a document from the World Economic Forum. That's the document right there. And this is, you can find this document on the World Economic Forum. You can go to the tab About Us and type in the person you want to find. And it says here, and I quote, and I quoted this in my voice note: Prime Minister Motley also serves as a co-chair of America's Cruise Tourism Task Force for the Caribbean, Mexico, Central and South American markets. Prime Minister Motley will also serve as chair of the Joint Development Committee of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund between November 2020 and October 2021.
Right, it's actually there on the screen,
okay.
and if you can make this a little bigger, let me and look at the last paragraph, because we are fact checking today. All right, so we want to somebody says here, that they're able now to see the voice, see the man behind the voice notes. And that she's going to do some research. So this is one of the documents here that Mr. Corbin is saying that he is a little surprised that the Minister of Finance, who is also the PM, would not know about the interest rates and will be shocked at the interest rates when she sits. She sat as one of the board of governors on the board of governors.
In addition to that, we also have to remember that most of the funding that did come into Barbados while being approved by the World Bank would have come into Barbados through the International Monetary Fund and also the Inter-American Development Bank. And at the end of the day, we have a copy of the board of directors of the Inter-American Development Bank. And this document, if we go down to page 2.
Let me see if I could find that to show them as well. Let me see if I have that here, because I think, go down.
Yeah, come down, scroll down, scroll down. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So this is saying that the IDB, you are saying that, not you're saying, but it's here on the screen, and that you remember, it's all about you doing your research as well. I did mine before I came on, that the Honorable Mia A. Motley, Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs and Investment, that she's part of the Board of Governors. That's and right. So we have just established that based on the information that is on the website, the official websites of these two entities, the World Bank and the IDB, that the Prime Minister, the Minister, who is the Minister of Finance, that she was part of the Board of Governors of these two banks. But we must also say that it's not just Prime Minister Motley. It's not. There's Belize Prime Minister. All the different Prime Ministers are part. So let's be fair in that and saying it's not that she didn't have special treatment, but that all the other countries were represented. And yes,
and the reason that the Inter-American Development Bank likes to have ministers of finance sitting under a board is that when they are going to do grant funding or when they're going to do development funding for a specific country, they will deal with the Minister of Finance. That is an established protocol, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. However, if you are the Minister of Finance and you're sitting on the board of the sponsor of a particular program, and you fail to do the necessary due diligence with regard to the fiduciary history or the prospectus for a particular project or what is being developed for your country, and then you come to the public and you say that you're surprised and disappointed when you are actually sitting on the board of the development who would have come to you and said, here is what we propose, this is what would work in your best interest, here are the variable interest rates over a certain period of time, this is the standard, this is the variable, and we need to come to common ground with regard to how the country is going to respond, with regard to its GDP ratios, how it's going to bring in new investment, what are the prospectus for new development in a region that would facilitate Barbados being able to work in a better environment for servicing of the debt. Was any of that shared with the public?
So you're inferring that you believe that this would have been not in the normal course of events. I mean, because you're not there, but you're thinking that in the normal course of event, as in the capacity of a Minister of Finance and a Prime Minister who's sitting on these two boards, that's the World Bank and the IDB and we were just able to show the documentation for that. You're inferring that this would be what you think would be the possibility
Precisely.
of what? Of any normal loan negotiation.
Precisely. And I must say this, that coming from someone without a financial education such as myself, I deal on a common sense basis. Common sense is what drives my intellect. Because if it doesn't have a common sense understanding, then I'm going to say, hang on a second. Okay? Because engineering, data, and research is about common sense. And anyone with a grain of common sense would say, hang on a second, why is this not being part of the public negotiations that the public needs to know about with regard to the future prospectus of what Barbados or where Barbados is being taken, or are we being led down the garden path because we don't need to know because we're on a need to know basis? And at the end of the day, what we've discovered is that everything is working in reverse. Instead of the public of Barbados being consulted with regard to what we believe should be done for the best interest of the country, and where the business communities are brought in and says, let us have a detailed discussion from the business community who understands the financial challenges, understands the industries that would be contributing to the debt-to-GDP ratio, or being able to alleviate the debt-to-GDP ratio. And we're having discussions with our regional partners as to how Barbados can assist or be assisted in greater GDP earnings. None of that was done.
But to be fair, I mean, normally, I mean, if you have negotiations, this is not something that normally is brought to the public to be involved in negotiations. Is that what you're saying? So you're proposing something new, because normally in most Caribbean countries they don't do that. They would have given that role to the Minister of Finance, to the Prime Minister, to sit and be able to reasonably negotiate.
And you're absolutely correct. And you're absolutely correct. And there's a reason why the public is not brought into the discussions. Simply because more often than not, there's somebody getting a pay cut somewhere. That's the reason it's not done. And at the end of the day, the socially conditioned public of the so-called democratic systems we have in the Caribbean region are kept out of the loop. Because if the public were to know what was going on, there would be an outcry. Okay, and this is the problem. If we are going to say at the beginning of a governmental period that we're going to be the most transparent government ever to be in power in Barbados, what happened? What happened to transparency? Did somebody spray paint the glass?
So okay, and there was another document with her and the WEF, but I think the most important ones at this stage would be the IDB, where we're getting a lot of the money from, and the World Bank.
That's correct.
Okay, so you believe, based on being able to establish that she's part of the Board of Governors, it's kind of strange that she would be so surprised.
It's very,
in your opinion, that it is strange.
It raises questions.
It raises questions.
It is not just myself as a common sense layman raising the questions. The questions are being raised by highly experienced financial management and controllers who have had experience, decades of experience in the Caribbean region, who are raising the exact same questions as little old me. Okay, so it just goes to show that common sense has the common thread running all the way through it.
Now, I want to jump to this other allegation that you have put forward, and which says that you're alleging that the government of Barbados was involved in negotiations of COVID-19 relief loans and funding before COVID-19 was introduced to the world.
That is correct.
And that's what. So where's it? What's the proof of that?
Well, let us go to a very important website. It's called the Staggerring Rousing Fund. Okay, and I quote, and I quoted this in my voice note. The The title on that is the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Barbados Inc.
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Barbados Inc. was established in March of 2020 in cooperation with the Office of the Prime Minister.
So it was March 2020.
Let's stop you right there. Let's stop right there. Inc. was established in March 2020 in cooperation with the Office of the Prime Minister. The facts show us that the incorporation of COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Barbados Inc. was actually registered with CAIPO in October of 2019.
So, okay, so what you called CAIPO and you checked on this?
That's correct.
But you don't have, so you just a telephone call?
No, not a telephone call. And I have the commentary. I have the commentary here.
So Mr. Corbin, I hope you can see while he's looking for that. This is the Sigrid Rousing Trust. Sigrid Rousing Trust, sorry.
A grant of £50,000.
Right, so that's the first grant that was
all it was.
And he is alleging that the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Barbados Inc. was incorporated in 2019, October 2019. Go and do your research. If this was incorporated in October 2019, when I went back and I looked to see when COVID was introduced, in about December, we heard that there was a strange illness that was happening in China.
That is correct.
And okay, well, we're not seeing in front of us the incorporation documents. So right now it's an allegation, and it's you know,
just have to go to
CAIPO.
So yeah, so here it is. So I just want to quote to the public. This was a response from a legal individual.
Okay, hold a minute, guys. Can you hear us? Guys, can you hear us? Do you see what is happening? As soon as we got to that document, do you see that you can't hear us? Steve, can you hear us? Our video has dropped out. Let me see. 1 second. Okay, we're back. We're back. All right, go right ahead. We're accustomed.
Okay.
Go right ahead and read what you're reading.
So we know that that CAIPO is in possession of documents that were filed with them prior to 2020. In 2019, the incorporation actually happened before the establishment. You have to have an incorporation procedure before the establishment actually happens. So the incorporation was in 2019, the establishment was in 2020. And a legal professional actually reviewed these documents and made these comments. I quote, "In response to these documents," and the question I asked everyone is just to look at the date of incorporation.
Okay.
Before an incorporation is done, a name reserve is first dealt with. This means they search to ensure no other entity has that name. This entity we are seeing was initiated before 2020. This shows that these players were privy to the coming of this pandemic. They were aware of the measures which would be taken ostensibly to combat it, and they were aware of how to capitalize financially on this agenda. This means someone informed them in advance. Please see who is responsible for the importation of masks, face shields, sanitizer, hypodermics, the ventilators, and the vaccines which have been bought. Suffice to say that the unnamed investor has been buying items from themselves. We already know who the bagman is.
Interesting. Okay, so let's wait, because these are some serious allegations. And I said they're allegations. There's a lawyer here, actually. I won't call her name, but she's on the live. And she is saying that usually you can go to CAIPO and do a company search and a business name search. And you will be able to see for yourself with what Mr. Corbin is saying, and he's encouraging you to do that.
Absolutely.
And she, the lawyer on here is also saying that yes, agreeing with you. One does a name reservation, and it is valid for 90 days.
That's correct.
So hence they would have had from October, November, December to get ready to receive the COVID-19 relief. So wow, if this is if what you're saying is true, then this would have taken place, this preparation would have taken place at least, 3 months before?
That's correct.
October, November, this 3 months before.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in order to back that up, one of the most important things the public needs to understand is that in 2018, the United Nations, in 2016, the United Nations actually created what is known as the Pandemic Emergency Financing Facility. And this is the document right here. This is the manual. Pandemic Emergency Financing Facility. You can actually download this document off the internet. And the Pandemic Financing, the Emergency Financing Facility was approved and adopted on the 15th of October of 2018. Okay. Now, if we go to
this is the PFO?
PEF.
PEF.
That's
okay.
correct. So what is the Pandemic Emergency Financing Facility? The reason that this was set up was to be able to offer some sort of insurance to small island developing states as well as other countries who will be suffering the effects of a pandemic with regard to being able to supply a certain level of funding to recover or to combat a pandemic. With all good intentions, however, there's just one small problem. When we go to the overview of the document and we go to section 10.
Section 10, so
Yes,
it's coming up
paragraph 10.
on your screen right now.
Paragraph
And
10.
what you can do is to just expand your screen so you can see paragraph 10 and take a look at that. I'm showing that on the screen.
That's
so go
correct.
ahead. What are you reading?
So what we hear is in respect of the initial period, covered diseases. This is section 10, covered diseases. In respect of the initial period, coverage under PEF insurance window is provided for high severity events caused by the following pathogen groups: flu, new or novel influenza A virus or influenza A virus whose hemagglutinin gene is antigenetically distinct due to an antigenetic shift from other influenza A viruses. 2, coronavirus, virus belonging to the phylogenetic family Coronavirus. Now, we were told in 2019, at the end of 2019, early 2020, that this was a novel coronavirus never before seen in the world, that a bat and a pangolin actually had made out in a wet market in China.
So hold on a minute before you go on. Let's just, because we're going a little fast. This document was put together when?
2016.
2016, okay?
And then it was inaugurated in 2018.
October 15th, 2018. A year before the
alleged outbreak.
The alleged outbreak occurred. Okay, so but though there was always coronavirus. Remember, it's not. This is not the. There was always. So were they talking about the coronavirus that because if you look even on a bleach bottle, it tells you Clorox. It says that it can deal with.
When did that start to appear on bleach bottles?
I think it was there before. I mean, from what I saw, it is something that was there before the pandemic came. So was this document that was started in 2016 and then was completed in October 15, 2018, was it making reference to that old coronavirus, or is it a no?
No.
Why do you say no?
I'll tell you the reason I say no.
Okay.
Is that if it was making reference to the old coronavirus, it would not have listed the coronavirus as separately to the A virus or flu.
Okay.
Because the flu virus is just as a coronavirus as well. It's just a different derivative.
And
so why don't just call it the flu?
Okay.
Now, that may seem confusing to a lot of people. A lot of people say, well, you're cherry picking for it, and so on. How can you prove this? Well, at the end of the day, when we look at the use of only coronavirus, what happened to all of the, what happened to the Rift Valley fever, Lassa fever, Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever that have now all of a sudden resurfaced in 2023. Why?
Okay.
Simply because the coronavirus and everything you see listed here was currently under development in biological weapons labs in Ukraine.
Okay, so that's a whole nother thing.
That's
Okay,
a different talk for a different time.
talk for a different time. So you are saying you're saying that this started from in 2016, the Pandemic Emergency Financing Facility.
That's correct.
That they created a steering body.
Mm-hmm.
And the steering body came up with this document, and that, are you saying that the Caribbean countries signed on to this?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because why? Well, let's take a little step back in history to understand why the Caribbean countries signed on to it. And the reason the Caribbean countries signed on to it, because in 2005, the Caribbean countries signed this document, which is the 2005 World Health Regulations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay? And why did the Caribbean countries see it necessary to sign the 2005 International Health Regulations? Well, there's a backstory to this. The backstory starts in 2001, when the Patriot Act was implemented right after the 9/11, so-called 9/11 attacks. We all know what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
The Security Council created Resolution 1373, which then instructed member countries of the UN Council to put certain measures in place with regard to safeguarding themselves with regard to finance, terrorism, and the flow of weapons, and so on and so forth. This created the framework for all 196 members, so that by 2005, the international health regulations could be signed by every single member of the UN Council, having signed on to the Security Council 1373.
Okay, interesting.
Once they signed that, and guess what? In the Caribbean region, this particular document was signed exactly 1 month after the Caribbean Court of Justice was established. And why was the Caribbean Court of Justice established and the Caribbean member states sign on to the Caribbean Court of Justice? Because you had to get the Caribbean region to agree to everything that was in the international health regulations. The only way to do it was to secure that on a common legal footing. That's what the CCJ accomplished.
Okay, interesting. Guys, I'm asking you to share. This is important. And once again, I'm just going to repeat what we've been saying all along. Research for yourselves. Everything that's on here, these are allegations, and this is not a court, and where anybody is saying that anybody's guilty of anything. But Mr. Corbin is asking many questions based on what he has researched. And we're looking at some of the documents, and I'm seeing some of the documents, and I'm going to research further because I've not can't come to any conclusions like you. So we want to all research. Let's be good students, right? Because this is our Caribbean, and that's really what we're talking about. Those of you on Caribbean, this might seem a little shocking to you from the different Caribbean countries, 16 Caribbean countries, and we want you to research, all right? We just have a couple more minutes on this program. So I'm going to, I have to ask you this one. Guys, do you have any questions? Before I'm going to ask him, Mr. Corbin, a couple more questions.
Sure.
But I'm still back at the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Barbados Inc. That was, according to what you are saying to me, because I have not seen that document, that it was incorporated on October 2019. October 2019. I'm wondering, what do you think, or in your opinion, there could be any connection with that and the scandal that we saw? It was reported in the news. There's nothing that we're saying here that's new. there was a scandal that was reported in the news where there was a scam of a known businessman in Barbados, and the government's name was called of Barbados and also of St. Lucia was called in this scam that occurred with the purchasing of injections, and the public was aware of it because it was brought to our attention by another news agency in the Caribbean. That's how we knew of what was happening here in Barbados, where a mogul, like a construction mogul or magnate, was asked to purchase injections for us here in Barbados, and it was supposed to be, throughout the region. So I'm wondering. I'm just wondering. Do you see a connection in any way?
Yes, because that particular operation took place under the auspices of the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Barbados Act.
What are you saying? That the alleged purchasing of the injections for the country, that you're alleging that it happened under the COVID-19 relief and recovery that was supposed to have been created in October 2018, 3 months before?
That is correct. There's also another twist to this, is that personal protection equipment for Barbados was purchased in 2017 for COVID-19.
What's the proof for that one?
We have the proof for that.
Because you didn't show me that.
I haven't shown you that, and the reason that I have not shown you that document is that I'm awaiting further verification of exactly the origins
so
of that.
you are at the moment you're saying you're not sure about that one.
I know for sure that it was purchased. I just have to find out who purchased it.
Okay. So again, he is alleging that it was that the protection gear was purchased. But how could that be? Because remember, when it started, we still didn't have enough. We didn't have enough masks, and we had to make cloth masks. So if it was purchased, why didn't we have enough?
That's what you were told.
Okay, but if they purchase it to sell it, why would they hold it? I'm just asking, anybody would ask.
It's the same way that oil, the persons who sell oil hold on to oil and drive the price up.
Okay.
There you go.
Well,
not only that, but we do have clear evidence that very well-established churches were involved in purchasing of personal protection equipment, not only for the British government, but also by extension, that personal protection equipment was allocated to Barbados as well.
Okay.
That's correct.
Well, until I haven't seen any of that, so I can Fred is a researcher, and as he says, he's asking you to research. Just this show information, and you're going to do the research for yourselves to be able to come to your own conclusion. On this show, this is no judge and jury situation here. These are all allegations, okay?
Yeah, so what we have here is the links directly to that situation here, where not only did we have the one of the larger organizations in Barbados as a church group, who is international, by the way. It's headquartered in Australia. They actually were exposed by a researcher in the British Parliament who activated a search and so on, and came up with the understanding that
so we won't call the name of the church. Don't call the name of the church. All right?
We're not going to call the name of the church. But what we're saying here is that we have the understanding that this particular company did provide the British government to the tune of £700 million of personal protection equipment prior to COVID-19 being announced around the world.
Okay. Oh my goodness. We just have 1 minute left on the show. But guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And as we've said, this is your opportunity to take this show and to share it around and to ask everybody to research. Let's get to the truth of the matter. I think you stirred me up today to research. We're not going away with, we can't make any conclusions. It's just, this information is mind-boggling, right? To say the least. And so all we can do is to research. Tommy Mohammed, yes, good afternoon. Pedro, Gemma, Steve Moore, all of you, Lupito, hi. That's on. Do you have any questions in these final moments with Mr. Corbin? Do you have any questions, right? Do you have any questions for Mr. Corbin before we close? We're going to stay on another 10 minutes just for any questions. And I want to, as people are getting ready to write their questions or comments, if you have comments, I want to ask you, you're an engineer and you're doing all of this research, etc., and you're seeing all of this. I know you're also a spiritual person. I want to understand, do you see any spiritual connection to all of this that's happening?
This is 100% a spiritual warfare.
How is that?
I'll tell you the reason why. The only way that you can influence a population to completely turn its back on God is if you create a medical countermeasure that interferes with the spiritual God-given gift of spirituality in the energy field of the human body. We are
break that down for me.
Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. First of all, let us be very clear, there are only two genders, man and woman. The most important thing we have to remember is that as created beings in God's heavenly realm, is that we are the creation in his image. We are given 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit at birth. At birth, we're imbued with the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. That force energy, that central energy, that source energy of the electromagnetic spectrum of the human body exists in the pineal gland in the center of the 2 hemispheres of your brain. Your eyesight, your smell, your taste, everything is, and your balance, your nervous system is all connected to that. The energy field that exists of your body is directly influenced by the spectrum of the energy field that is in the earth, the earth's electromagnetic spectrum. This is the reason why the earth has been created by God for us. We are spiritual beings in a bodily experience, in the physical form. But the earth's electromagnetic field is created for the prosperity of humanity. God did not create anything that it was going to cause negativity, going to cause destruction, going to cause chaos for humanity. Humans, man, having fallen into evil, has created that chaos. And this is what we're experiencing. And right now, what we're experiencing is the single greatest existential threat to not only our spiritual existence, but our physical existence. Because those persons who are members of a 6,000-year-old death cult want to transfer humanity into transhumanism. Okay. And the way to do that is by a medical countermeasure that takes the human body and translates it into a half machine, half cyborg. This is where we're going. This is the reason they're attacking our children. They're coming for your children. And I've said this before. And I say this to the World Health Organization, and I say this to the Pan American Health Organization, and I say this to the Prime Minister of Barbados and all the Prime Ministers of the Eastern Caribbean. We, the sovereign nationals of our respective sovereign territories of the Caribbean region, we reject anything the World Health Organization brings to us. We reject the Pan American Health Organization and all of its employees' mandates, and we will not stand for dictatorship with regard to what we do with our children. Because why? As heavenly spiritual beings created by our Father God, we will go to war for our children. Do I make myself clear?
Okay, and the war that he's talking about is a spiritual war. Okay, so let's be clear here.
Yeah.
He's talking because remember we started at the top of it. He said it was a spiritual war, and so and I know that yeah, I know that that is happening right now. There's a question here that someone is asking. They said, what can be done? Yes, Tommy Mohammed says, how could this problem be dealt with? And that's one of the things I told you about the show is that we are thinking forward. You know, it's about what we're not just want to say what the problem is, but how can we as Caribbean people, which I need you guys to share this throughout the Caribbean, what can we do?
Two very important things. And it starts with understanding that first and foremost, you are a spiritual being. So you have a positive energy field that exists in your body. So number one, positive attitude with regard to the future and what you want to see. And that positive attitude translates to everything you do. Why? Because when you have a positive attitude, the Spirit of God has access directly to your energy field. In addition to that, having a positive attitude creates a sense of excellence and awareness, whereby everything you do gives glory to God. Number two, non-compliance, mass non-compliance to fraudulent criminal government regulations, mass non-compliance based upon the understanding of your spirituality. You cannot take away your spirituality. The positive spiritual power of soul love for humanity cannot be extinguished because it is a God-given light within each one of us.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. And so you're saying mass non-compliance is what is needed throughout the Caribbean region.
That is correct.
Because in your mind, this is not over yet.
Nope.
It's not over
yet. It's only just getting started, people.
Okay, interesting. Now, someone is asking here, Nehemiah is asking, and we're going to not use the V word here. They want to know, is there any link between the Ukrainian war and the needle of infirmity? I love that, Nehemiah. Nehemiah helping me out, right? You know, is there any link between the Ukrainian war and the needle of infirmity? Really short, because I think we're going to need you to come back on to deal with some of those things, but just give us a short answer for that one.
Let me just confirm that the 26 bioweapons labs that were interdicted by the Russian army were directly involved in the creation of all of the pathogens linked that you saw in the pandemic emergency financing facility. They're all named in that document, and they were all discovered being developed in Ukraine, and we have the documentation to prove that.
Okay, so he has the documentation, and so whenever he comes back on, then we can, Tommy, we are going to try to schedule a show in there where we deal with the Ukrainian war. Okay, excuse me. But I, as you're sitting here, you know, I don't shy away from the hard things, right? And I want to ask you a question.
Go for it.
When people knew you were coming on the show, they said, but he's politically motivated. Well, are you which political party? Are you politically motivated? Or have you been part of a political party?
I've never been part of a political party, but I am now a part of a beginners political party. And that will be coming to an announcement very soon. Simply because the reason.
But Fred, I thought I saw. Didn't you run? You ran before in a party? No. Okay, all right, no problem.
No, I've never.
So you've never run before?
Simply because I'm not a politician.
Okay.
I believe in leadership. Okay.
So why are they saying you're political?
I have no idea.
It's the same thing they say about me, that I'm political, but I've never run. You know, I've supported all parties in Barbados. I've never voted one way. I'm not even Barbadian, but I think sometimes people mix up when you start to critique the government, then they're thinking that makes you political. No. The other one that's staring me right in the face, and you know I'm going to ask you, I love you as a brother, but I am curious. I mean, the kind of things that you are seeing about the government in Barbados. I've seen others that have said less, others that look like me, black like me, that have said less. And some of them have court cases and nobody touches you. Is that because of your race?
I would like to think not, because at the end of the day, I don't want anyone to single me out as being superior to anyone else. Because
No, I know
But-
that you don't think that you're superior to
But-
anyone. But let's be real.
No.
Be honest. You're an honest man. Do you think that because someone said to me, Marcia, be careful. Remember, you black and he white, and they won't come for him, they will come for you. I'm being real and honest. You understand, Tommy, Pedro? I can't hide. I have to tell the truth. Steve, I gotta talk the truth.
Let me tell you.
Talk to me straight about that. Let's talk about that.
Let me tell you the truth. Okay, I'm a black man in a white man's body.
And I believe it. But what do they see? Do you think that is a reason that, because you've said some really, some serious allegations, and nobody came after you?
No, nobody has come after me simply because I can back the allegations with fact and documentation, and that's what other people haven't been able to do.
And you're saying it's not because of your race?
No, definitely not. Because at the end of the day, I want, something. Let's clear this up one time.
You're going to show me that you're a black man? Listen, this man has so much proof, right? He's going to show me now that he's a black man with white skin. I believe him, though. All right, while he's looking for that proof, I'm teasing him. We so appreciate you, Fred, throughout the region. People, I know Jamaicans, I was on a program where I was moderating the program when they requested you. You're known throughout the region, and people do respect you for that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but anybody, any other questions before we close? We have 2 minutes, and we're going to close this out, guys. This has been quite interesting.
The photograph I wanted to show everybody is not here. That's probably a good thing. Because
I'm teasing him, but he was going to show us a photograph. Listen, he's like those people that say they identify. He identifies as black. All right.
The most important thing is this: I have grown up in my beloved Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
I have grown up alongside my black brothers and sisters, and there is nothing, as I sit here before my Heavenly Father God, that will cause me to abandon this cause. That's the bottom line, because each one of you are just as precious as each one of anyone else. And in the sight of God, abandonment does not exist in His realm, and abandonment does not exist in mine. It's just that simple.
But Fred, I said I wanted to end, but just looking at you, tears were welling up in his eyes a while ago. What I want to know is, I've heard white Barbadians who come out against you and are ashamed of you. Yes. Actually, yes. Can you talk to us about that? I want to end, but I have to be real. Yeah.
Well, I think that they're justified in being ashamed of me, because what it does for them is that, in the eyes of everyone who sees that, is it only shows the perspective of, or the lack of the lack of empathy on the white side of Barbados, when they have been in the exact same position as I have been. Why is it that friends of mine who have gone to school with me, have had the same environment upbringing as I have, why is it that I see my fellow man for the love and the grace and the mercy that our Heavenly Father administers to us each day, but others see them as only objects? This is unacceptable. And I absolutely refuse, to align myself with any doctrine, ideology, opinion, or otherwise that will disenfranchise, corrupt, or otherwise put down or speak down to my fellow man across the Caribbean region. And I've visited and I've seen every single Caribbean territory, from Belize in the north to Suriname in the south. And the response to my questions on this has always been the same. Whenever I bring the question up, how do you think about a white man talking to you or sitting in your house and so on? And they look at me and say, well, you know what, you black?
Yeah, but I mean, he's risking a lot, because I hear from the white community, they are, every time he opens his mouth, they are like, oh my God, what is he going to say? They are worried.
Yeah.
They're really worried. And, you know, I want to end, man, but I have one. What can you say about your critics who say, they say, man, Fred Corbin again, he cuckoo. He lost a screw. This man, somebody said to me, I don't think Fred is all right up in his head, you know. And I think the reason they're saying is the kind of things he's saying in a climate like Barbados, where you could be shut down. And he is still opening his mouth. What do you say to people who say you're cuckoo, that you've lost a screw?
Two things. Number one, I've never been accused of being sane. So let's clear that up. Two, I would say to those persons, I understand why you say that I'm crazy, why you say that I may be, you know, not genuine, or you may say that I'm completely and totally mad. But there's a reason you say that. It's simply because you have not attained the sense and the realization of self-awareness that comes with intelligent research and knowledge. So please, do us all a favor. Download something called a brain and use it.
All right, that's in true Mr. Corbin style. If you hear the voice notes, you know, and this is a face behind the voice notes. Guys, this has been a wonderful experience meeting him live, and I'm so glad that we made this suggestion of coming together because of some of the issues that were happening. And I'm so glad that we did that, because we were able to meet each other. And I want to thank not just you, but all the persons in the region who came to the defense of the region for the last 3 years with all that we went through, right? So thank you all for watching, and share. When you get off this program, the best thing that you can do is to share this to at least 5 persons, at minimum 5 persons, because what we want an intelligent population. We want a population, not of people who are just, serving, but a population of leaders who are going to research. A leader researches. A leader is not going to sit down and wait to hear what Fred Corbin has to say and then to take it up, or what these press conferences throughout the region, what the prime ministers in the regions, the Caribbean region, what they're telling us, but what people who are going to use the intelligence that we have and to research. I am going to do some research after we leave this program, and I'm hoping that you will do some research after all of these allegations, big allegations that Mr. Corbin has come with today. We are going to research. Okay, once again, thank you for joining, and I'm going to kindly ask you again to share. Thank you, Mr. Corbin, for coming by.
Thank you very much. And just understand one thing to everyone who's listening: I have no problem being proven wrong. As I said, I don't want any disciples. Just do your research.
Wonderful.